1912, hundreds of trains converged on Chicago every 24 hours. On a bitterly cold January day, 65-year-old Thomas Edison, world-renowned inventor and father of the electrical industry, was on one of them. He was coming to a city that had gone from swampland to metropolis in little more than a century. It was a city of slums and outrageous fortune, of immigrants and opportunity, of broken hearts and dreams come true.
Chicago's wild. It's not a place for the weak or faint of heart.
They pick up horses and throw them out of the way if they can't keep up.
Edison was bound for the city of the fire, of riotous violence, of possibility, of the World's Fair, the Museum of Natural History, the Chicago Symphony.
Caruso's singing in the auditorium. It's the tallest building in the world. People love it. They hate it. But they keep coming.
He was bound for the city where churches and saloons carried equal weight, and politics was a bare-knuckled brawl.
If you go to a church or a bar that's not in your neighborhood, they show you the door, head first.
Thomas Edison was headed for Pilsen, to Fisk Station, which housed the first 5,000-kilowatt vertical steam turbine ever constructed for commercial use. It was built by Samuel Insull, a British immigrant who'd been Edison's personal secretary in Menlo Park, the scene of so many great inventions.
If you think about it, Edison's coming to see his grandchild.
He's got the light bulb on that station in New York. What is it? Pearl Street.
He's got all those patents. He's even making movies.
But Fisk and Pilsen, this is something else.
Fisk was a product of the city and the neighborhood it was born in. Like the immigrants and the industrialists who came before it, Fisk picked Chicago up on its broad shoulders and helped it grow anew. Chicago became a city in 1837. It was 10 square miles between North Avenue, Lake Michigan, 22nd Street, and Wood Street. There were 398 homes, 29 dry goods stores, 26 grocery stores, 17 lawyers' offices, 10 taverns, 5 churches, 4 warehouses, and 1 mayor, William Butler Ogden.
4,000 people in 1840, 300,000 people 30 years later. One writer says it's one of the most amazing things in the history of civilization.
The railroads bring people from everywhere. If a train goes out with butchered cattle or hogs, it comes back with immigrants.
In addition to being the hog butcher to the world, Chicago quickly became the world's largest railroad hub, grain port, and lumber market. 270 lumber boats arrived in Chicago every 12 hours, more than any other city in America.
People are stacked like cordwood. And they're doing the jobs no one else wants to do.
In 1871, Chicago burned like a runaway forest fire. More than 73 miles of streets and 17,000 buildings were destroyed. 100,000 people, 1/3 of the population, were homeless.
Where are they gonna go? Even the river's on fire.
Relief efforts abounded. New York Railroad tycoon Jim Fisk, whom Fisk Station is named after, drove a team of 6 horses, pulling a coach full of contributions headed for Chicago.
They're running from the fire like ants. And here comes Fisk with his wagon and 7-car lightning train. He's got coats and vests and coffee and flour and medicine, and it's all worth about $250,000, but he just gives it away.
Amazingly, Pilsen was untouched, a safe haven for thousands as they fled from the fire. Chicago treated the fire as a temporary inconvenience. The Chicago Tribune published an edition with smoke still in the air.
So we had a little fire. Couple of things burned. Just keep your britches on.
In 1892, Samuel Insull came to Chicago to become president of Chicago Edison, the big power company. He arrived to a city that buzzed with the idealistic mania of the upcoming World's Fair.
Look, we built this city out of nothing, and we're doing it again. We're going to be the biggest, the best, the most amazing thing anyone's ever seen. And I'll tell you something else. If you want to see your future, come to Chicago. You can watch moving pictures on Edison's kinetograph. You can go into an electric kitchen. You can go up and down on an electric elevator. You can ride on a Ferris wheel on a sidewalk that moves, and an electric train that runs up over your head. You can do anything. All you need is your imagination.
Insull brought Edison's idea of the central power station to Chicago. He came, like the hundreds of thousands before him, because he saw a great opportunity. Like the Bohemians, Germans, Irish, and other immigrants, like the risk-takers and entrepreneurs, Insull was going to build Chicago.
Chicago needs electricity, plain and simple. Insull has to do something.
Chicago Edison built the Harrison Street station, but before long it was overloaded. Expansion would have provided only a short-term solution to the mounting demand. What Insull proposed was to build nothing less than the world's tallest central generating station, using a technology never before demonstrated on that scale. A vertical 5,000 kilowatt steam turbine generator. He wanted General Electric to build it. They told him it couldn't be done.
Can you believe it? Insull tells GE, if the unit doesn't work, I won't make a claim against you. All you have to do is take the apparatus out and throw it in the junk pile.
They broke ground on June 28, 1902. Unit 1 went into service on October 2, 1903, just 7 months later.
As Sargent got ready to start the unit, he saw Insull standing at his side. He said he wanted everyone out, including Insull. When Insull asked why, Sargent said it was dangerous and he didn't know what might happen. Insull said, then why don't you leave? And Sargent replied, look, Mr. Insull, it's my job to stay here. I have to, but you don't. Don't you understand? This thing might blow up. And to that, Insull said, if it blows up, I'll blow with it anyway, in more ways than one. So I might just as well remain here.
It was hailed as the most powerful steam turbine in the world. It marked a revolution in powerhouse design. It was so successful that 10 more units were installed, each nearly 2.5 times the size of the first. By 1907, all of Chicago's electricity was being generated by Chicago Edison. For over half a century, Fisk remained the largest generating station in the Edison system. In 1975, the American Society of Mechanical Engineers designated Fisk Unit No. 1 a National Historic Mechanical Engineering Landmark. Today, 100 years and several turbines later, Fisk is still the power that's building Chicago. In his 1995 inaugural address, Mayor Richard M. Daley said Chicago is a story of people who never quit, who never give up, no matter what the odds. Mayor Daley says Chicago's strength is in its people. As a port of entry, Pilsen has welcomed countless immigrants to begin a new life in America.
A doctor from Moravia is the first Czech to make it to Chicago in 1849. The first Czech restaurant and saloon opens in 1852. Frederick George Novi, a pioneer in bacteriology, is born here in 1864, the year his parents arrive from Bohemia. After the fire, a Czech opens the Pilsen Cafe and names it after his hometown, the Bohemian capital and home of Pilsner beer. In 1874, Anton Jelika and Magdalena Kolokova are married in the first Czech church in America, St. Jan Nepomuk in Pilsen.
By the 1880s, there were 45,000 Bohemians living in Pilsen. It was a center of industry for Chicago and included stone, iron, and carpentry works. Czechs and later Poles built the Southwestern Plank Road, the Illinois and Michigan Canal, and the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Railroad.
Getting together and having a few beers is a way of life for hard-working men. The beer's cheap, there's plenty of it, and it's probably a lot cleaner than water or milk. The cafes got tables and chairs, and you can hear all the news you want in them, and some you don't want to hear.
In 1877, the Great Railroad Strike began in Pilsen, turning the nation's eyes on the neighborhood. The 22nd U.S. Infantry was called in. They fought the workers at 16th and Halstead, near the old Viaduct Hotel. There were other confrontations, such as the fight outside the McCormick Reaper Works. But the Battle of the Viaduct was the worst.
Times are tough if you're a working man. You go back and forth all day on Blue Island Avenue, carrying goods in and out of the city over plank roads built on top of mud. But at night, the same plank roads bring you home.
Pilsen was home to a community of Czechs and Poles who enjoyed their culture, practiced their traditions and customs, and created a community. They also gave Chicago a great mayor.
Anton Chermak. He's from Kladno, near Prague. He comes to Chicago with his family in 1874, and after 3 years of school, he goes to work, like his father in the coal mines.
Cermak had the Pilsen spirit. He started a business hauling wood and coal. He became an Illinois state representative, and in 1931, he was the first foreign-born person elected mayor of Chicago. In his inauguration speech, Anton Cermak said, "We want the world to know that Chicago, reborn in civic pride, in determination, and in inspiration for worthwhile progress, extends her invitation to people everywhere to enjoy the hospitality of the Middle West's great metropolis."
I'll never forget it. The mayor was in a parade car with President Franklin Roosevelt going down a street in Miami, smiling and waving to the crowd. Giuseppe Zangara jumps out and fires 5 shots at FDR. He hits Chermak. The mayor falls out of the car and says, "The president, get him away!" Roosevelt stops, puts Mayor Chermak in the car, and holds him all the way to the hospital. Before dying, the mayor says to Roosevelt, "I'm glad it was me instead of you."
When Thomas Edison visited Fisk and Pilsen in 1912,